It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. Across the world, tributes have been pouring in for anti-apartheid hero Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who has died at the age of 90. Tutu rose to prominence in the 80s as a vocal dissident of racial segregation and was appointed first black bishop of Cape Town, the most senior spiritual position in South Africa. In a statement posted on social media, the CEO of Martin Luther King Jr. Center, Bernice King, wrote, and I quote, "I am saddened to learn of the death of a global sage, human rights leader, and a powerful pilgrim on earth." British Prime Minister Boris Johnson called the Nobel Prize laureate a critical figure in the fight against apartheid. French President Emmanuel Macron also recognized the impact on ending apartheid system and called Tutu dedicated his life to human rights and the equality of the people.
Desmond Tutu was a rebellious priest, albeit for a good cause, whose doggedness and fighting spirit won him global acclamation.
Freedom! Freedom is not cheap.
The South African Anglican bishop and theologian started life as a teacher, but abandoned that career after the passage of the Bantu Education Act in 1953, which introduced racial segregation in schools. Anti-apartheid campaigner and human rights activist than for evangelism. The buoyant, blunt-spoken clergyman used his pulpit as the first black bishop of Johannesburg and later Archbishop of Cape Town, as well as frequent public demonstrations to galvanize public opinion against racial inequity, both at home and globally.
We don't take our marching orders from the ANC or the Communist Party.
He was, however, quick to add that his opposition to apartheid was driven by his religious belief that God created human beings equal. There was no political undertone to his anti-apartheid advocacy.
I want you to lift your hands.
He was the Bishop of Johannesburg from 1985 to 1986 and then the Archbishop of Cape Town from 1986 to 1996. In both cases being the first black African to hold the position. Theologically, he sought to fuse ideas from black theology with African theology. Desmond Tutu was born of mixed Xhosa and Botswana heritage to a poor family in Klerksdorp, South Africa. Entering adulthood, he trained as a teacher and married Nomalizo Leah Tutu, with whom he had several children. In 1960, he was ordained as an Anglican priest and in 1962 moved to the United Kingdom to study theology at King's College, London.
We are the rainbow people of God.
In 1966, he returned to Southern Africa, teaching at the Federal Theological Seminary and then the University of Botswana, Lesotho, and Swaziland. From 1978 to 1985, he was General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches. He emerged as one of the most prominent opponents of South Africa's apartheid system of racial segregation and white minority rule. Although warning the National Party government that anger at apartheid would lead to racial violence, as an activist, he stressed non-violent protest and foreign economic pressure to bring about universal suffrage.
Like 1994 here in South Africa, apartheid, whoops, gone, freedom arrived.
After President F.W. de Klerk released the anti-apartheid activist Nelson Mandela from prison in 1990, and the pair led negotiations to end apartheid and introduce multiracial democracy. Tutu assisted as a mediator between rival black factions. After the 1994 general election resulted in a coalition government headed by Mandela, the latter selected Tutu to chair the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate past human rights abuses committed by both pro- and anti-apartheid groups.
600 died in the Soweto turmoil.
Following apartheid's fall, Tutu campaigned for gay rights and spoke out on a wide range of subjects, among them the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, his opposition to the Iraq War, and his criticism of South African President Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma. In 2010, he retired from public life. As he rose to prominence through his activism, he elicited different opinions from his compatriots. White conservatives who supported apartheid despised him, while many white liberals regarded him as too radical. Many black radicals accused him of being too moderate and focused on cultivating white goodwill, while Marxists-Leninists criticized his anti-communist stance. His activism earned him many awards, including the Nobel Peace Prize. In a fitting tribute, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, in a statement announcing the passage of the Archbishop, says Tutu's death on Sunday is another chapter of bereavement in our nation's farewell to a generation of outstanding South Africans who have bequeathed us a liberated South Africa. From the pavements of resistance in South Africa to the pulpits of the world's great cathedrals and places of worship, and the prestigious setting of the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony, the Ark distinguished himself as a non-sectarian, inclusive champion of universal human rights. Tutu had been hospitalized several times since 2015 after being diagnosed with prostate cancer in 1997. In recent years, he and his wife Leah lived in a retirement community outside Cape Town.
Now, Tutu is part of the Ages, isn't it?
Yes, this is the second totemic figure of the apartheid movement that we've lost this year. F.W. de Klerk, who famously obviously handed over to Nelson Mandela. And now Archbishop, the Arch, Desmond Tutu. And what a life. I mean, right now we should be rejoicing. He lived an amazing life. He served his God and he served his people all over the world. And one of my favorite quotes from him, he talked about how he's not interested in crumbs of compassion from the table of a master who thinks, you know, he's above him, that he wants the whole menu of human rights. And he fought for those rights for everybody in a non-sectarian fashion. He was involved in the Palestinian struggle. He was involved in, you know, gender equality, the rights of the gay community, the rights to live and die with dignity. He was also pro-euthanasia. Just a remarkable human being. And we don't have that much time, but I often think about the end of William Shakespeare's Macbeth and the end of that character's life, where he's talking, you know, reflecting on his life and saying honor, love, obedience, and troops of friends I must not look to have. Instead, you know, he's cursed. But I look at people like Desmond Tutu, who has all those things. Honor, love, obedience, and troops of friends across generations, across the whole world. In this presentation that we just saw, there was a tweet there from the Dalai Lama, just a one-liner, because I can imagine the Dalai Lama is completely, you know, bereft at the loss of such a close friend. Their friendship was legendary. I also saw Desmond Tutu with a fellow Nobel Peace Prize winner, Aung San Suu Kyi, and we have to compare that he held on to his cause to the end in a way that she did not, in a way she betrayed herself in some of the actions that she took, especially her silence with the Rohingya massacre. Desmond Tutu never betrayed himself. He was even known to publicly upbraid the ANC. He said such strong words against them and criticism of them. So it's one thing to say, oh, he fought against the white South African oppression, but he also was quick to criticize his own friends. That's to show you the level of complete neutrality that he had and what he stood for, which was just purely justice. And, you know, may his soul rest in peace. This is a Christian. Yeah. And we're blessed to have had him.
We can say that again.
Desmond Tutu, what a man, what a life. We commiserate with the people of South Africa because they've lost a man. They've lost a very significant figure in their history. And it looks like an era is ending in South Africa. As Tundu pointed out, yes, de Klerk was the apartheid man. And now you have Desmond Tutu also passing. Both of them had the privilege of long life, of longevity, of playing very important roles in history. And the question that Desmond Tutu's passage throws up almost immediately is what next for South Africa? What is the reality in South Africa today? As the history of apartheid, we continue to see many faces of it, and it's unfolding. The average South African today, does that average South African appreciate the history and the implications for the future? As for Desmond Tutu, yes, he became a priest in 1960. He became Bishop of Lesotho in 1974 to 1978. And he got involved in this liberation struggle and earned a just reputation as an anti-apartheid liberation fighter. And all the tributes that we have seen on him, from President Obama to the Queen, to Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, everyone, we've seen people paying tribute to the role that he has played in history. As a patriot, which is a specific phrase from President Ramaphosa's statement about him. He won the Nobel Prize in 1984 for his contributions. He made history, the first bishop in Cape Town, the first black man to achieve that position. But more importantly, his significance is about his struggle in the front lines. A man who had the courage to speak. In fact, at a point, the Dalai Lama, when he was to visit South Africa, he was opposed by the state. He was reminded that he's not Deputy Jesus Christ. So please, sir, you are not Vice Jesus Christ. But in any case, that's an indication of the fact that this was a man who could speak his mind at all times. So what is important that we all should focus on is his symbolism, his significance. He may have passed, he lived long enough, 90. We can only thank God for his life. And he was also connected with Nigeria in many ways. I saw the tribute by President Olusegun Obasanjo. He was saying that, in fact, he was supportive of Nigeria's debt cancellation initiative. So his significance goes beyond South Africa. His significance extends to, basically his humanism about how to make the world a better place, really, and the whole of Africa. So it's not only South Africa that is bereaved, it is the entire African continent that is bereaved. It is the entire world that is bereaved. And we hope, that the people of South Africa will remember these examples, not as an opportunity for money only. He will be buried, we have been told, on January 1. But as an opportunity to learn from his example, his patriotism, his nationalism, his humanism, his commitment, his legacy. That is what is important. And we as Nigerians who have shared stories with the South Africans, women, along with the South Africans, that he was a man. A man has just passed.
Right. I know there's no time, but I just want to make 2 sentences because I wouldn't forgive myself if I don't say something about Desmond Tutu. He impacted me so much. Great icon. But 2 things. When President Ramaphosa was sworn in, Ramaphosa gave a speech and he said it's the beginning of a new dawn in South Africa. Desmond Tutu's reply was, we are praying for you, but we hope your new dawn is not a false dawn. And when you look at the reality today, it's like a false dawn in South Africa. Secondly, Desmond Tutu will famously say, do not raise your voice, but improve your argument. And I think in our national discourse, in our life, we should learn to improve our argument. It's not by raising your voice that wins the argument, but improving that robust argument. And that's all on News Headline. We take a short break. When we return, we'll have Ruth Sudiri, Adeso Omoro, to give us updates in Africa, business, COVID-19, and activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Ruth Sudiri is here to give us an African business update.
Yes, good morning. Happy holidays to you all. Good morning to the Glorify. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning to all our viewers. Happy holidays to everyone. So just Christmas Yuletide theme on the federal level and Lagos state level. First, at the federal level, train rides are been given for free for Nigerians from now up until January the 4th. This was disclosed by the head of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, the NRC, and it's basically they said to reduce costs for Nigerians that want to travel using the trains. Is also, in the spirit of giving. Same thing with the BRT buses, rapid transit in Lagos State. Governor Sanwo-Olu of Lagos has declared free bus rides for Lagosians from now until, I believe, until New Year's. So it's a similar theme at the federal level and at Lagos State with the transportation. However, some folks are saying, well, yes, it's a good gesture, but is it? Does the naira add up? So one of the reasons why we're looking at the BRTs now. They said they lost about. I think it was it 39 or 40 billion to the NSAR's destruction as far as the number of buses that were burned down. So you've got, I think, an average bus costs between $100,000 to $200,000 for each one. There's also the issue of ticket pricing. I think October 2020 was the last time ticket prices for BRT buses were raised. Before then, it was 2017. So there's been the issue of, then also there was COVID-19 as well. COVID reduced the amount of passengers that each of these buses could carry, which meant that the amount of funds, or rather revenue coming in, has been severely impacted when you add the COVID restrictions, when you add the NSAR's destruction. So some folks are asking, does it make sense to be giving free rides at a point where travel is high? And I'm going to get to hotels in a second while I'm talking about how hotels are heavily booked. But before we get to the hotels, this period, the Yuletide period, is when the interstate travel and other sectors of the economy in transportation and aviation make a lot of money. And you would expect, the BRT as well. So a few questions there. Also on the railway, for the railways, there's the maintenance issues. There have been questions as to whether the tickets are appropriately priced. Remember, the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, had to come to one of the train stations in Abuja and warn the staff there that they have to stop what it is they're doing with, I think, ticket scalping or so, and if not, he's going to deal with them. So are the tickets appropriately priced? If you look at it, use inflation, use a number of other cost metrics. Are these, as far as the BRT, as far as the railway, is concerned, are they making enough money to afford? And there was the strikes as well. There was the strikes in October. The railway workers said that their welfare wasn't being paid, and so I think they ended the strike in October also. So there's so many issues, revenue issues that these entities are facing. You wonder whether it makes sense to be giving free rides at this time. To hotels, it's not much to say here. Top hotels in Lagos and Abuja are fully booked apparently from now through the New Year period. And, it just shows that the appeal, at least for the two major cities, is there. I think some hotels in the east are also fully booked as well, with the influx of people going towards the east. So also in the east as well, you're seeing a lot of hotels that thrive there as well. And then finally, Dubai is in the news again. They're apparently now indefinitely suspended flights from Eastern Africa. So Ethiopian Airlines, Kenya Airways, Air Tanzania. Initially it was for a 48-hour period. Now they've increased it indefinitely until Omicron comes under control. And that's our...
So, yes, it's a good point you raise as regards railway lines and free rides. Because really, when you look at it, the cost doesn't add up. And when you also look at the fact that recently, I was hearing somewhere that they still had to pretty much prep up the cost and subsidize it, despite the cost they're charging now.
Yeah.
And these things, investments are supposed to pay back over a long period of time, then it doesn't add up. And concerning the ticket scouting, I think this is the time to go technology. I don't know why you still have to go to the station to buy tickets even in the first place, where you can go the route of technology. So that's a conversation we should open up and look at the possibilities. I'm happy the hotels are full. This time last year, we're recording a lot of deaths in Lagos due to COVID. And in fact, this time last year was the isolation centers getting filled up. But now the hotels are getting filled up. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't take precautions.
And also restaurants all over Lagos, I was told, are completely booked. You couldn't get a table for love or money during Christmas. Right. And I was like, wow, this is really great. The staycation, the sort of domestic tourism kicking in here with the Omicron flights cancelled. You can't get into this country or that. There's always, home. No place like home, ultimately. Right. But I do wish people wouldn't quibble about every little thing. We always say that this country does nothing for us, we get nothing. And now you're getting this little gesture at Christmas, and they're going, well, but I'm like, oh, it's so tedious. It's so tedious. It's tedious. It's tedious. Don't look at gift horse in the mouth. Just say thank you for crying out loud. Well, for Lagos State government with the BRT buses, it's not like a free for every single person.
This is a great gift to do.
Don't be uncharitable.
This is a great gift.
It has to make economic sense.
If you have your carry pass, then you can get a free ride. Yeah. So it's not just for all comers. You have to have invested in that carry pass. So they're doing to give back to people.
Right.
With the train rides, the one thing I will raise is some concerns that some people have that there are people still charging, even though the tickets are supposed to be free. But there are people taking advantage of people who don't know. And I think that should be investigated.
Well, no, I would like to comment on this. We're not overrunning. Now, quickly.
Yes, very good, Dr. Bati.
What I don't understand here is the contradiction that we're dealing with. We're told on one hand that there is Omicron and that we face an Omicronous end of the year. Yeah. In other parts of the world, Germany, in Israel, in parts of Europe, people are shutting down, right? They're saying, look, even the WHO, a few days ago, I think I quoted the Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus the other day saying that, look, an event cancelled is better than a life cancelled. And yet, here in Nigeria, the Presidential Steering Committee is saying one thing. We're seeing a different thing across the country. We're seeing a different thing in terms of attitude. Look, in England, in Wales, in Scotland, in Northern Ireland, there's a big problem with the travel and tourism industry. There's a big problem with the hospitality business because people are canceling bookings. And yet here we are saying in Nigeria, all the hotels are fully booked. Even government is saying, if you want to travel, we will offer you a free ticket on train rides, either in Lagos State or at the federal level. There's a contradiction there.
How so?
We are encouraging people
to move around.
To go around like smallpox.
That's your favorite.
People have been going around like smallpox. Okay, now the National Center for Disease Control just reported that, I think was it yesterday or 2 days ago, over the weekend, that Nigeria recorded over 4,000 cases of Omicron in one day. So where is policy? Where is policy meeting action? If you are telling people, all the hotels are fully booked, all the trains are free for you to just going about like smallpox. I saw people going about like smallpox over the weekend. So this is the disconnect that Nigeria will need to deal with. It's either we realize that the world is facing a crisis, a pandemic, and that all of us need to be careful. It's not enough to just say, wear a mask, do this. Government itself must provide the leadership. I do not support the idea of giving people free ride. People should stay at home.
All right. On that note, Rotus, Adeswa will take this up, I'm sure. Thank you, Rotus. And now for an update on COVID-19 pandemic, Adeswa Marawa is here with us. Hi, Adeswa.
Hello, Tundun. Great to see you. Good morning, Dr. Bati, and good morning, Rufai.
Good morning, Adeswa.
Great to be here.
Good morning.
Yes, interesting.
I'm still waiting for that information, about you know what we are talking about. You know what we are talking about.
Okay, we'll speak off camera, Dr. Bati.
Okay. And this is what you seem to have planned this hairstyle with Sundu.
I have no idea, but we'll speak about it. All right, guys. So speaking of COVID, yes. The conversation, it can be very argumentative depending on what side of the divide you are on. As scientists say, this has come to stay with us. So how do we live with this virus? It doesn't seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon. Of course, the highly transmissible but thought to be less severe Omicron variant is living up to its description, driving up cases across the world and fast becoming the dominant strain in some countries. So far, these are the figures according to the Johns Hopkins University. Over 279 million people have now been infected since the beginning of this pandemic. At least 5.3 million people have died. A reminder that a vast majority of people actually recover from from COVID-19. However, there are those who still live with the symptoms weeks and months after. This has now come to be known as long COVID. We also know that over 8 billion doses of vaccines have been administered on people globally. And here in Nigeria, in the past few days, the country has been reporting a steady increase in the number of COVID-19 infections. Dr. Bachi is right. Those figures are high. We recorded our highest daily toll a couple of days ago, over 4,000 since the pandemic began in just one day. It's been confirmed that we're in the fourth wave in Nigeria. There's no doubt about it. In the last 24 hours, the new figures coming in, 1,547 new cases, 8 COVID-19 related deaths. On Christmas Eve, 21 people were reported dead from COVID-19 in Nigeria. So those numbers are going up, and we all need to, put our hands together. All hands need to be on deck to get these numbers down. The NCDC over the weekend also revealed that a total of 45 Omicron cases have now been confirmed in Nigeria. Now, about a month ago, you will recall I brought you a story. The agency in charge of vaccination in Nigeria started ranking state governors based on vaccination performance in their state. In that maiden ranking, the governors of Ogun, Nasarawa, Oyo, Osun, and Ekiti took the 5 spots respectively. However, in its latest ranking released some hours ago, of the top 5 performing governors, based on the trajectory towards vaccinating 50% of population in all states by January 2021, we are few days away from that, about 30-something days to that deadline. Can Nigeria meet that deadline? We're already missing the WHO 40% target for the end of the year. Well, that is on your TV screen. In this new ranking, the NPHCDA says Jigawa State moved from the 12th position in about a month ago to displace Ogun State to take the top spot with 23.51% vaccination rates in the state. Nasarawa State also moved up to take the second spot with 23.36%, while Ogun State dropped to third spot with 16.31%. Oyo still maintains one of the position in the top 5 positions. However, it dropped to the 4th position this time around with only 13.11% of its population vaccinated against COVID-19. And of course, there's a new entrant on that list. Kwara State makes the top 5 list with 10.20%. Delta State, however, is the state to watch. The NPHCDA is describing Delta State as the most improved state by doubling its daily vaccination rates in the last 7 states. However, Delta State remains on the 9th position on the list. And of course, 8.5% of eligible Nigerians have received a dose of COVID-19, and 3.9% of Nigerians, the eligible targeted population, have now been fully vaccinated against, again, that so fall short of the WHO target for 40%. Nigeria hopes to change this tide by January next year, and of course in subsequent months. Now, a fully vaccinated presidential aide, Garba Shehu, has tested positive for the COVID-19. He himself made this known over the weekend during a live television chat. The senior special advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari on media and publicity says his symptoms are mild and he feels just fine. There were reports that more aides to the president may have come down with the virus, but Femi Adesina some hours ago also came out. Femi Adesina is the special advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari on media and publicity. He says there's no cause for alarm. He was asked if the president is currently isolating, considering that he may have come in contact with these aides. You recall that the president has been on a couple of trips in recent weeks with some of these aides. Mr. Adesina said the president is doing just fine and is going about his normal duties. Let me remind you that President Muhammadu Buhari received his booster shot about a week ago. So he has received 3 doses of the vaccine, and we are told that he's fine and going about his normal duty. Coronavirus has definitely brought chaos to millions of people across the world during this Yuletide season again. It's not something we thought we would see. However, we are here. More than 7,000 flights have been affected globally during this holiday weekend. On Sunday alone, a little over 2,300 flights were cancelled and over 800 delayed. Pilots, flight attendants, and other employees are calling in sick or having to quarantine because they've come in contact with people who have been infected. Some of those airlines that are affected include Lufthansa, Delta, United Airlines, JetBlue, Alaska Airlines, and some Chinese airlines as well are seen as the most affected, with about 20% drop in their flights. Well, it doesn't matter how many planes you have or how large your company is. If you do not have the staff to get those flights going, you go nowhere. In Israel, one one hospital will today begin administering a fourth COVID vaccine to 150 of its staff. It is aimed at gauging whether a second booster shot is necessary nationwide. Now, it's called the Sheba Medical Center. It's just outside Tel Aviv, and it says this study will actually include 6,000 people in general, including the 150 medical staff. The study is the first of its kind in the world, and is being carried out in conjunction with the Ministry of Health in Israel. This comes as Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has started isolating at home as his daughter tested positive for the virus over the weekend. And finally, speaking about hospitals, well, talk about gross negligence. One hospital in Australia has once again had to apologize this morning for errors with COVID-19 tests. 995 people have been told their negative test results were actually, in fact, wrong. This comes as the same hospital sent messages to 400 people on Sunday that their COVID test results were negative when they were actually positive. Back to you guys.
Oh, that's a terrible disaster from Australia. I don't think an apology cuts it. Was there an explanation of that kind of incompetence? I'd be curious to know. Now, I wish Madam Garba-Shehu a speedy recovery. I'm sure we all do. I don't use the royal we, like Dr. Abati here. Speak for myself. And you know why I'm saying that, Dr. Abati. Private joke. Anyway, we hope he gets well soon. But the definition of fully vaccinated continues to change. Now you're not fully vaccinated if you've just had 2 jabs. You need to have 2 jabs and the booster. And now in Israel, it's looking like we might be having 4 jabs. We'll wait to see the outcome of that study. And last week, President Muhammadu Buhari was pictured in the newspapers getting his booster jab, and that serves as an encouragement for everybody to do the same. On my own personal experience, when I did try to get a booster jab, I was not able to do so because apparently the supplies were in short supply because of the expiration date issue, and us having to destroy vaccines that have reached their expiration date. And it continues to remind us of the tragic fact that Nigeria is beholden to the charity, to the benevolence of the Western world. When and if they feel like sending us vaccines, they will do so. If those vaccines are substandard, because if they're about to expire in the next 3 seconds, of course they can't be administered, then that's really our fault for being remiss. We were remiss. I mean, Nigeria continues to develop animal vaccines and produce animal vaccines in VOM, and we don't produce vaccines for human consumption. It's a complete absurdity. And now we see where we are. We've discussed this several times on this show, but it does bear repeating.
Well, Adesua, first let's start with the point you made about how there have been cancellations of flights and how globally the travel and tourism industry has been affected. In the UK alone, over 6,000 flights, cancelled over the weekend. And then, I bring that up because it appears very interesting that whereas in other parts of the world, the travel and tourism industry, the hospitality industry are both affected, what you find in Nigeria is the reverse, whereby, the hotels are fully booked and the government is even giving free tickets to people. And before you joined us, we had commented on that contradiction. Why is that the case? Is it that, look, we are isolated from this global phenomenon, or that there is a disconnect between what the Presidential Steering Committee and the National Center for Disease Control knows, and the NPHCDA, and what the rest of us know as Nigerians? Now, in Israel, yes, it's still experimental, this second booster that you are talking about. And the Ministry of Health has not even provided funding for it. Israel is recording, on the average, about 1,118 cases per day. And every 2 days, the figure increases. So, but Israel is one of those countries that has been very active, very proactive in dealing with the scare of the pandemic and its mutations and all of that. But this experimental effort, we would like to see how it works, because there are some scientists who are already saying that, in fact, we may need up to 12 booster shots. And that what we're dealing with is a regular flu. So the people who have taken the booster jab and all that, you may need to take more, because scientists themselves are in a place of uncertainty. So, Tundu, you may need to take more booster jabs.
Yikes.
The unfortunate thing is that these booster jabs tend to be more ferocious than the original jabs. And finally, on the issue of Garuba Shehu and other officials in the presidential villa testing positive, well, what is the big deal, really? The fact that you are in the presidential villa does not mean you are immune. And that's the point that Femi Adesina has been making, to say precisely that, look, the people in the villa, they are human beings. There are persons like Mr. Atedo Peterside who are taking the booster jab and who came forward and said, look, he's been down with it again. The president of Israel, the prime minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, he tested negative. His daughter is positive. He too has taken all the jabs. And look, what we're dealing with is a major global crisis. And we might as well just, address it from that perspective. But I'm glad to hear that Garuba Shehu is fit and well. He says he's been doing his exercises, running up and down for 1 hour. But let us all just be careful, particularly this season when that familiar phrase, when people are going about like smallpox, can people just calm down? Okay? Thank you, Adeswa.